It's only 5 of us today? Only 5 today? Okay.
Who's sick and what's the other one is? Oh, we have a quorum.
Okay.
This is the committee to assess and recommend strategies for housing creation or addition of Barnstable.
I think your mic's off.
Ad hoc.
Well, you're generous.
Um,
You really know how to feed a man, don't you?
You want to read this meeting one? You usually do.
Yeah, I'll do that. This is the committee to assess and recommend strategies for housing creation within the town. It's January 29th, 4 p.m., a little after 4 p.m., and we're in the hearing room. This meeting is being recorded and will be rebroadcast on the Town of Barnstable Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. The chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. This meeting will replay via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel live video on-demand archives on the Town of Barnstable's website. And I'll take roll call. Councilors, Paula Schnapp. Here. Councilor Betty Lucky. Councilor Charlie Bloom.
Here.
Councilor John Crow.
Here.
Councilor Gordon Starr. Mary Ann Barboza. Hilda Hay. Laura Schufelt.
Here.
And Chair of Committee, Rick Presby.
Here.
You have quorum.
Okay, first we're open for public comment. Do we have any of the crowded public room here? Anyone wants to comment? Now, we have a little bit different situation today. I'm going to say this now rather than later, in that the public comment, people can public comment, but then when that's going to get shut down, people won't be able to. But later on in the meeting, I'm going to close public comment after you too, if you're going to speak too. You can still raise your hand and I'll call on you, even though it's not public comment. So thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Kristen Turkelson, Town Councilor, Precinct 2. And just coming back from the Massachusetts Municipal Association Conference, Paula was also there, and went to the affordable housing section, and it was interesting. It was not enough time, of course, as you all know, and this topic is very deep. And the P-Town had a presentation, which was really interesting. And I guess I just would encourage this committee to reach out to maybe P-Town and the town of Nantucket and maybe get some interesting concepts from them. Maybe they could do a Zoom presentation to just bring you up to speed about some of the things that they've been doing in their town to prioritize housing. And it was a hopeful educational opportunity for me as a town councilor to learn a little bit more about what other towns near us are doing. So thank you for your time.
So have you thought, do you have anything in particular that Provincetown's doing that you just want to mention to us, not explain?
They highlighted a bunch of different things.
Okay.
So, creation
we've had
of housing through, properties that are acquiring, tax incentives. I know we've talked about some of those
Yeah.
in our meetings, but, and when I get the slide deck, I can share it with the committee.
Okay,
But I
please.
think it probably would be better to just reach out to P-Town and Nantucket and maybe pick their brains or have them come, give you a 20-minute explanation of what they're doing, because the actual content of the educational session was very short and they ran out of time. So it was like a hit and run event. So
would you, this is just a question that you've already answered, but do you think it's better for one or two of us to go to these places and talk to them, or better to try to get them to come here?
I think it would be interesting to have it in the public record that they could explain what they've been doing. And then, again, you could ask any questions, of them when they're here.
Does the town pay for somebody to come from Nantucket?
But I'm thinking maybe by Zoom, they might be able to do a Zoom, have them do a Zoom presentation. That way they don't have to come. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, another question. Sorry, Laura.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with what they're doing. I could, in a future meeting explain it, but Nantucket bonded $20 million. And
Yeah, well, I
not
saw
sure.
that. I read that myself, but
Right.
I don't know all the details.
And they have that they have put aside through free cash bonding and other sources, basically a treasure chest of money to be able to acquire properties. So, and then they've made public land available for affordable housing, and also subsidized it when it moved forward. So, and Provincetown has a variety of ways to subsidize through tax incentives, year-round rental housing, and they have a year-round trust fund that they got special legislation for to do above 100% AMI with their own funds. They bonded to buy a timeshare that was going under. So there's a lot of things that are pretty specific to the communities themselves.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Larry Moran from Katuitt. I don't want to be silent back there.
I'm glad you're not.
I'm jumping from one subject matter to another, so I came today, as I do most of the time, to listen to what you have to say. I heard you mention something about going to a site somewhere, and it came up last night at the comprehensive wastewater meeting, which was in that room, that they wanted to have a site visit, and they thought they couldn't do it. But under the open meeting law, it's an exception, is that you can, and all of you can go as long as you don't deliberate and talk about it. You can ask questions, and that's it. But so if that comes up, don't be inhibited by doing that if it's valuable to you. Now, the one thing I could see it happening here, because you've got multiple issues, and there may be projects in place, there may be other activities that you want to visualize, and you want to then come back and be able to say, I saw this and I saw that. You can do that then once you're back here in the panel. So that's something to think about. And just pick a day when it's 45 degrees and no wind.
Yeah, oh,
Okay?
thank you, Larry.
Okay, so that's,
Nothing else?
no, I'll put my name on here for the list, but otherwise, no.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you. I don't know whether Cindy wants that listed out. Let's leave it here.
Hi, my name's Chris Gregory from Centerville. I just want to note Hilda did come on Zoom. She was recorded as not present at roll call. I'll sign in later. I came to talk today about some of the conversations that you all ended on last time around by right zoning for duplexes in the villages, and also areas that are, I find, interconnected around short-term rentals, short-term rental regulation, and things that this committee isn't even concerned with, like the zero vision work other committees are working on. There was a conversation about zoning last time and redlining, and I agree that there is no intentional redlining in this community anymore. I do think that there's a market inefficiency in our housing community that has priced out a large population because property is too valuable. And that is, I think, almost more insidious than someone intentionally saying, no, we don't want this type of person there. It's just it's not the free market. It's weird inefficiencies that are keeping people from being able to get housing where they want it. And I receive emails from Ned Chatelain, who's a realtor on the Cape, but he's also on the select board in Brewster and works with housing assistance there, so I trust his numbers. The number of available units in Barnstable County has lingered around 500 since 2021, and last month there were only 134 houses that were under the median price of $775,000. And that it boggles the mind that that's where we're at. You all mentioned that that short-term rentals only make up like 3% of our housing, so maybe like 700 units out of the 20,000 households we have here. So they're probably not going to move the needle if you try and restrict them. I see more an issue with empty second houses that snowbirds leave, and you can see the effect on neighborhoods that are empty and kind of sad in the winter and are isolating to many of the residents here. The conversation about single-family housing was, the comment I took away was, it's something very nice, that one of the council people mentioned, that they think it's a nice aspect of their village. And I don't think that the type of house in a community is what makes that community nice. I think it's the people. And having a diverse population and people from all aspects of life are what make a community nice. And there just isn't any more room for more ranches and capes. I believe the city planning director said in a different committee that a large portion of the town is zoned so that some plots out in the mills can't be subdivided unless they're like 2 acres. Like you're just stuck in certain areas of the town. And so I see duplexes and townhomes as an option to create more availability to people who need housing available to them. That's circular logic, but I know that Councilman Crowe was skeptical of their presence in Osterville Center. I understand that. I live off of Finney's Lane, and I think Finney's Lane could really use some duplexes on it if people want to sell their houses and people want to build them there. It's a sterile road. It's there to move people. It's not fun to be on if you're a pedestrian, if you have kids. You're stuck on the side streets. The Zero Vision program that the planning department's working on is going to suggest things like narrowing roads like that, making them more friendly to pedestrians. If we add housing that complements those efforts, you're not just making housing more available, you're creating a neighborhood, which I think is incredibly valuable because there are concerns about, oh, is this type of person with this type of housing going to work here? If people are just staying in their houses and not talking to each other, they're just going to assume those bad things about people. If you're working with a larger goal of building communities and neighborhoods and not just we want to add housing X, Y, and Z, then I think that you can break down some of those misconceptions. I also think this is where short-term rentals come into play, where I understand concerns of, oh, if we add them, people are just going to rent them short-term. Fine. Cap the number of short-term rentals. I don't see what the problem anyone would have with. People seem to think that we have enough of them. Make a license that you have to buy to get them and say there are only going to be so many, so that new construction isn't going to go to it. Use the fees for the licenses for enforcement to make sure people aren't skimping on you. But I worry that we are encountering new ideas and we can only envision the bad things that come of them. And I'd like to take a step back and look at the interconnectedness of all the hard things you have to consider and see what good can come out of if you put your effort into it. And I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that all of you are bringing to this. And I just wanted to to draw together all those different intertwining things that I'm seeing in the conversations you all are having. So thank you.
Thank you. I just will say one thing. From about 1979 to 1983, I was involved with my organization in building single-family homes. We built them everywhere except Provincetown and Nantucket, so even on the Vineyard. And the average price we paid no more than $12,000. It was $9,000 to $12,000 for a lot. And what killed the program was in about an 18-month period, they went from 12 to 25, and we couldn't do it anymore. And now you look at it, what is it, 150 now? You know, something around those. And if you look at the data for income increases versus, the average income versus the cost of housing, the incomes go up much more slowly here anyway than housing. And so it's a permanent problem because of the ocean, I assume. And so what do you do? So that's why we're here. We're trying to figure out at least something where we can make a difference. And some of your ideas, which I wrote down, are worth talking about. And anyway, so that closes public comment for now. And so the other thing I wanted to bring up today, just to be clear, is at the town council meeting a couple of weeks ago, most of you probably know this by now, well, a good deal of you are on the town council. The town council asked us to report to them something, and it wasn't completely clear to me what they wanted us to do, so the council members will be able to clarify this. But what I concluded that they were looking for us to do is explain to them what the opportunities are for affordable housing in terms of state money and those kinds of things, and what the process is like, so that the council can better understand those details. And sure, there are some pretty interesting details about that. And I'll just mention one of those details to maybe trigger your curiosity. But when somebody builds an apartment complex with some affordable units in it, and let's say they build 100 units and there are 10 of them that are affordable, they don't gain any ground on getting 10% and satisfying 40B, because they're creating more market units than they are affordables. But if you do a 40B project, a rental project, all the units count. So if you have to do to at least 25%. If you do 25%, the 100 units in that project all count towards affordability. So there are real advantages to doing 40Bs in terms of satisfying the 10% requirement. And of course, it would have been easy if we started in '69 when the law passed, but we didn't. There were 71 cities and towns that have done it out of the 351 in Massachusetts. But there's been a lot of resistance to it, as you all know. But that's one of the opportunities that, we haven't taken great advantage of. And it would have made it a lot easier than it is now. So having said that, one of the things that I gave to you is just to get the discussion going. It says there's a paper that says some questions we might want to be able to answer when we appear before the town council. And I'm interested in the town council members here if they see this a totally different way, because I will admit that I was a little confused over exactly what they wanted when I heard it. And I talked to a couple of town councilors about it, and to the best of my ability, I came to this conclusion, but it may be the wrong one. So if you look at this list, and I just did this as what some of the questions might be, because I wanted to start thinking about it. I don't think we need to do it before we finish off our 3 or so ideas. We can do it after that. There's no emergency, but we can be thinking about it. Any comments from councilors, particularly about what we will need to actually do? And you look like you want to say something, Paula. maybe you don't.
The workshop that we had at the end, or beginning of January, regarding the Marston's Middle School property was to introduce to the full council what has occurred so far in the planning process, which
Yep.
has basically been developing 3 conceptual plans. My sense is, even though there wasn't a vote or resolution, that the council, I don't want to say unanimously, but it seemed a consensus opinion was that it would be a parcel that we would consider housing
Right.
and possibly some recreation. And the reason that's an important decision or moving in that direction is
I think
because.
everybody here was there, actually, come to think of it.
Right. One of those options was all recreation. And again, I think that that was not the consensus of the council, that it would be a parcel that would continue as, passive or. So then the question is, how do we move to the next step of determining what is the most appropriate types of housing, who it would serve? Reminder to everyone that this is a public piece of property, and so generally there should be a equivalent public purpose to the housing that is created there. I doubt it's something that we want to just hand over to a developer. I mean, if we did, we would be selling it at market value for market rate housing. So, I mean, I guess that is one, that is one consideration. It would not be my recommendation. I think we have an opportunity to create a an extension of the Marston's Mill Village community with a very interesting blend of housing, whether it's exclusively home ownership, some mixed rental, if it has any other restrictions in terms of age or income. Those are some of the things that the council needs to consider. But we also have to look at the feasibility of what could be created there. We know that there will be sewer infrastructure brought to that site in the next 2 to 3 years. So that takes that problem more or less off the table. I mean, it's still, it's a consideration, but it used to be a limiting factor for what could be created there. But in terms of the financial feasibility, whether our preference is to have something that would go back on the tax rolls, that's a financial consideration. If we wanted it to be just to a nonprofit, and there wouldn't be, but it would be serving a particular, a more probably lower income population. These are all questions that I think we need to look at, and I don't think we weren't at all prepared to have that continued conversation back then. But I think the suggestion was we needed to, reach out and get some additional information. Now we have some, expertise, sitting here among us that could bring some additional information to the council for discussion. But in addition to what I've just said, there also are certain technical questions regarding if we put a request for proposals together, and how much we can actually designate of what we, there are certain parameters or boundaries in which we can, influence the design or even the unit mix. I mean, we can sort of set our vision for what we want to see there, but again, I look to Laura. There are certain things in our state law that prevent us from, whether it's in procurement or other things, that we can only say so much. So we want to be prepared when we ask the town to move forward on this, like what's our vision, and what are our constraints and opportunities. And how we move forward on that is, I think, possibly initially a brief workshop, whether it's from members of our committee, fine. But I think the recommendation beyond that is that we need to continue with a feasibility study. There needs to be additional analysis and information for the town to make a good decision. And we're not there yet. So that to me would be the outcome of the next step of this process, is to illuminate all the other things we need to consider, and then, charge the staff with getting additional information for us. So I would turn to my colleagues to see if I'm characterizing our meeting and also sort of what our charge is.
I did talk to Jim Cupford today to warn him or to ask him if he would do some of the work and the research and so forth that we might need, and he was happy to do it. So, I mean, to make that link, I mean, not that I haven't talked to him before, but I haven't asked him to do anything for us before. So that could be helpful, and it may reflect something you just sort of implied or said. I think it's really, as a Marston's Mills resident who's been to all of those meetings and heard the good news and bad news from the population there, and it's pretty hard to, well, if I was all by myself, since I've done enough developments that I've had to make these decisions sometimes on my own, and I don't live in the community, and I'm not in the role I'm in now where I have to kind of keep my mouth shut to some extent, I would know just what to put there that in the end they'd like, but they wouldn't like it until it was all built and occupied, you know, and I really do believe that you have to look at the needs that we have as being extraordinarily important, and you said that essentially in what you said 5 minutes ago, and to have our government ignoring the crisis need for so many people at multiple levels, it's just unthinkable, in my opinion. And so you have to think about that when you're planning what you're going to do in that place. It isn't just about the people that are living there now. It's the people that are suffering the loss of homes. And you can get health care if you go to the hospital. You can get food if you go to one of the 15 food pantries on the Cape. But in housing, you're on somebody else's couch for a week or two, and then they kick you out. I mean, it's a crisis. It's such an incredible thing, as you know. You've been involved in this for a long, long time. So I think there has to be housing there. And so what is the housing? What should it be? And who makes that decision? Well, I guess the council makes the decision. So what you're saying, is that what the council really needs us to do is to talk about the types of possible housing that could go there and why one might be better than the other.
No, I don't think that's our charge. I think
Okay.
we're here to be honest, I think it was handed to us because it was perceived as we're not ready to make that next, call. So we're going to prolong our discussion. But I think that what the council would like to hear is more process. They want to understand the process and some of the other considerations that we should know before we make any further decisions.
Well, of course, what I thought, to some extent, in thinking about this, was that the development process is complicated. You two happen to know what the process is, but the council probably does not know.
And I don't think the council needs the nuts and bolts of the development process, but they need to understand the big picture and, where their decision-making is critical and the parameters of, so I think Laura can speak to a lot of that.
Okay, thanks.
So this is, as you know, this is what I do in a lot of communities. And when it comes time to get to the body that's going to be awarding the project, what they need to know before they get to that stage and before the request for proposal is put together is where the parameters are, where the guardrails are that are put on by 30B and the Attorney General's office as to how much you can dictate in a request for proposals without it becoming a town project. And that's a changing landscape, and very little of it is written except in decisions. So, but that's what's needed, to know that you can be broad, you can, say a maximum of units, you can do a lot of things, affordability that you would require or that you would then give bonus points for. And those are the kinds of things that you need to know. And a brief overview of what the process is. Okay, what are the steps A, B, C, and D before we get proposals in? And what's the time frame in a in a perfect world. And that's really, I think, what the council would need to know going into this. And again, it's something that that isn't intuitive.
And at the moment, we don't actually have a parcel.
Right.
That we have a 14-acre plus parcel that I don't think there's any intent that the entire parcel would go toward housing. So there would have to, again, that's why I say there has to be some additional feasibility work, both in terms of, the physical layout and then the economics of, what works. And that will inform, the RFP and some of the things, the decision points that we can require of the RFP without overstepping.
So what do you mean by the economics in this case?
So, if I can.
Yeah.
Basically, if you have an idea or range of the number of units, then you do a back of the envelope
Yeah.
pro forma to make sure that it pencils out, given the situations that are on the ground right now, what's available right now. That's the best you can do. You can't predict what's going to happen in the future. But if you try and pencil it out for right now and it doesn't work, then you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what's increasing the costs.
So, what about affordability? Affordability now is different than it was during most of my career in the sense that it involves probably half of the society, it would be affordable, for people who make decent money but can't afford to buy a house, and they may not be able to afford to rent for $3,000 a month either.
So with public land, the vast majority of communities that I work in, and I can't think of one that didn't do it this way, is they have a minimum affordability. Sometimes it's 100%.
Okay.
Sometimes it's 50%. And then you have, something that is scores higher if it's a range of income between 30 and 100% AMI.
So what is affordability's maximum percentage-wise of income?
Affordability?
Well, is 100% affordable?
Yeah, it's affordable.
I don't know what it is now.
It's affordable under CPA. So typically, they put, and there's subsidy from the state for up to 100%.
So you can't go, affordable can't go above 100%.
Affordable can't go, affordable to be counted on the SHI can't go above 80%. Affordable to be used with public funds, some public funds can go to 100%.
So we would have to, I assume we would have to debate that, but probably would go to 100%, I'm guessing, or let's just say we might.
Well,
And then-
again, it would be the council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just,
I'm just,
I'm just having a
we all have
conversation.
different,
I'm not
I know,
making-
we all just have different hats.
I'm
so-
not making a decision here.
Yeah.
But then, they would have to decide whether there's any non-affordable units there or not.
Right.
That if we could build, if they were, let's say there was some homeownership units, for example, if there were, and I'm not saying there will be, then you might be able to build them that weren't affordable but were less than market cost.
Well, in home ownership, I should have clarified, in home ownership, there's a program that goes up to 150% AMI for home ownership.
So those are our parameters in terms of rentals and home ownership
Yeah.
and numbers and so forth. One of the plans that was done by Jim Kupfer had adjunct units, whatever they called them, behind. He had two buildings on the same property. But I never really, you know what I'm talking about?
Accessory dwelling units.
Accessory to ADUs. And I never really quite understand where the money was coming from for those.
That's a question.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a question. I don't know the answer for that. Right now, there's no public funding for ADUs.
So it's a nice convenient way to make more units available, but there isn't necessarily a way to do it.
Well, it would make first-time home buyers also landlords.
Yeah.
So, then there would need to be, I think there would need to be, required training.
Of course, they don't have to live there anymore, do they? If it's, under the new regulation, they don't have to live there.
Well, they would if they're
If
under,
it's affordable, they would.
if it's affordable, they would.
Yeah.
And under, under the seasonal communities, if the town opts in on that, you can do year-round restrictions.
Yeah. So are we a seasonal community now?
No.
That's what I thought. So can we become a seasonal community?
The guidelines and process have not been written yet. I'll let you know when they are. But they haven't been written yet.
Yes.
Just to clarify, Laura, with something you said, there are subsidies that can go between 80 and 100% of AMI on these units. What is the difference for those subsidies between 80 and 100? Or is it different? What I'm trying to say is the state have different ideas for how much they can subsidize? You made a distinction between the two. That's all I'm asking.
There's, so for the town trust funds, there's a difference between 80 or below 80%, 80% or below, or above 80% to 100%. There's a different maximum per unit. And in the state funding, there's different funding sources. So they have a maximum for each of them. So like they used to call it workforce housing, and I can't remember what they're calling it now. It's not called workforce. It's, say it's 150,000 a unit. And then for the home ownership, that goes up to 150%, it's 250 a unit. So, yeah, they're scaled based on the sources.
Okay. It's just different pots of money you're looking at,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
But you can get the same amounts, or the
You
amounts
can get different amounts. You get more amounts for 80% and below than you can get above that, yeah.
Any more comments on these, the 7 things that I wrote in terms of, obviously, we went in a little different direction than I did doing this, but,
Rick, I have a comment.
what?
I have a comment or a question.
Okay.
As you know, I do support hiring a staff person to oversee. Oh,
Oh,
sorry. I'm looking at the wrong
different piece of paper,
questions.
Yeah,
Never mind.
okay. That's our next discussion, so you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes back to STRs. I think it should be considered for this list, regulation of STRs.
Short-term rentals?
Yeah, short-term rentals, and I passed out a
You've
analysis.
got the other list, don't you?
I think on
the list of items that give to the town council 129. This is your transfer tax, hire staff professionals.
Yeah, the other one,
The other was a question.
this is the questions about the issue of, that they asked about us doing telling them about developing
Okay, we're not
affordable
on
housing.
this yet. We're on this.
So we're about to, after people are satisfied that they don't need to ask any questions or say their crazy ideas,
This was on the
then we'll go to the next
Yeah.
subject, yeah. No comments, okay. So now we're moving towards the next agenda item, which is the continuing, well, I did put down, didn't I, discussion of market rate rental housing in Hyannis, and I just wanted, I think it was worth our comment, but, our thoughts, but, everybody's probably seen the article about the people commenting that we don't need all those units in industrial park that are market rate units. We need more affordables there. I doubt that anybody disagrees with that here, and maybe there's not much to discuss, but it is certainly something that's it is something that's pressuring us in the community now. That is, builders and real estate people and so forth, seem to want to take advantage of the opportunity to build a lot of housing that doesn't necessarily meet needs, and maybe it'll bring down people who spend more money and help the small businesses and all of that. It might be some good things, who knows? But it doesn't help the way it should or could for affordable units. Any comments before we move on?
I happen to agree with that. I think we need to get closer to the 10%, make our way towards that at least. And so we are building a lot of units that are not in that range of people can afford. And there was an article in the Wall Street Journal last week about this, about many parts of the country now have a glut of these units, and they're high-end with a lot of amenities, but they're going unfilled. And it's a question of, and also I think the Cape Cod Times said something about this week too. So whether that we've reached a point where we've have enough of these units that are market rate versus doing our diligence to find more of affordable units that we can put up. And we've got a different inclusionary as part of this, all kinds of things. So,
Okay.
I'd like to speak about this one, too. Of course, I definitely believe that market rate housing in Hyannis, that we have a lot of it. And but the need, when it comes to a need, we need workforce housing, we need affordable housing more than we need market rate housing. But you can't do one without the other at this point in time. You know, it seems like you either have a 40B where you can get a little higher percentage of the affordability element, or you just go with the generosity expressed by the developers if they are willing to give more than 10%. Others give the straight 10%, and so I wish there was some way to figure out how to get affordable housing done on its own. I know that HAC does that, of course, but we're still at 6.5%. It's been since 1969. It's not working. We need to figure something out.
That's why you use 40B.
And even 40B won't even solve the problem quick enough.
Well, you go 100% affordable,
Yeah.
because if you do 25%, you get counted for 100%.
We might, and you can count everything in on that,
Makes a gigantic
but that's not actual affordable workforce housing. Those extra numbers,
Well, you can do more than 25%.
Yeah. So, I don't know anything about solving that problem, but to me, it's a problem.
No, it sure is. Yeah.
I mean, one way to do it is to make public land available for affordable housing and increase the affordability in it. Change our inclusionary. Once we have a financial analysis, it should say 15%. I know 15% of some of these big ones doesn't get us too much closer to 10%. But right now, we're not making much progress at all. So I think we have to look at all opportunities to increase it. And if we dedicate more funds to writing down the costs of market to affordable, if developers are willing to do that, we should be negotiating that as well.
So that jumps right into the next discussion, number 3.
Could I ask one question, though? Because
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
you said something that's interesting, and if when we get to 10, is there going to be any benefit that we will have regarding affordable housing itself? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Will
I
we
know.
be able to do it easier?
No, the 10% is a goal. It doesn't meet the need. But when you get to 10%, you can say no to a 40B without an appeal. The developer would not have an appeal. You can say yes, but the zoning board has to take the application, but they could say no, and it would be considered local needs, satisfying local needs. So in a way, it's contrary to the needs of the community for affordable housing, because at 10%, technically you can stop, but then you're always putting more, assuming you're always adding market units, you can drop down too if you're not constantly keeping up with it.
Yeah, 1969 was a different time than it is now, because it was perceived that 10% was a good number and it would really be helpful then. But incomes have gone up more slowly than housing costs to an extreme degree, so it doesn't quite relate. And they also thought that there'd be a lot of communities that wanted to get out of the loss of control that 40B provided. And so you get 10%, you could just tell them to go drop dead and you don't have to do any more. So it didn't work out quite correctly, but that was, I think, the idea. You had to be a woke person or something then to understand it and do it, but money is making money is not a particularly woke definition.
I just want to mention quickly, of course, because we haven't said this yet, but Hilda Hay, our committee person, is attending by Zoom.
So on the list of 7, there's not 7 and 8 other ideas. It's the one that just goes 1 to 7, updated list of possible ideas to give to the council. And I thought we'd go to number 3 first, out of order, because Laura was just talking about inclusionary requirements and so forth. And what we're doing with this list is 2 things. One, if anybody has things that aren't on the list that we discussed before and think should be on the list, now's the time to say it, or when we're talking about this. And then otherwise, I took the notes from when we went through the list, and this is what was left, but that's just based on my notes. And so if somebody said, I don't think it's possible we could achieve this no matter what, I didn't put it on the list, even though it might be a good idea. So, and you don't have to go by my opinion. I'm using this to get us a starting point.
So Rick, do you have a time frame in which we're going to move forward on any of this? Because I spent a good amount of effort trying to organize the strategies that we talked about in December. And that's a list that also is something that we talked about that includes, but some of these are not on this one. So what is our goal for today's meeting?
Well, if our goal is to begin to get rid of some of the things that won't be on the list of things we give to the council. So, for example, I think that, there's been a lot of talk about transfer tax on real estate, for example. So do we do that? And my definition was, are there things that really will help in affordable housing, such as the hiring a staff person? And I thought we all agreed to that one. It's probably pretty much on the list, the final list, but may not be. And so
I've spoken to that as an important feature in our administration of our housing programs. Do I think that's a strategy to increase housing? No. I mean, I think it's an important thing that we talk about in terms of aligning our town resources, but as a one-on strategy, I'm not sure that's.
I think it could be a strategy to increase affordable housing. First of all, it would stop some of the loss, but that's not it is increasing the housing that's actually affordable. It doesn't increase our 6% or whatever. But that person, we haven't defined what that person's job would be. But one of the things I'm really concerned about, and you can say this is ridiculous, but is the disapproval of affordable housing that exists out there among our population. And so if we had a person that not only does the work, but publicizes it and markets it, makes people realize that it's really a good thing, that would be helpful, and it make it easier to do development. You know, I mean, I don't know why, but I was a little shocked at maybe the minority of people, but the strength of the anti-people in Marston's Mills that would absolutely convince that they wanted zero housing there. And that bothered me a little bit. Yeah.
I think I was convinced, I mean, I obviously have been advocating for a staff person, but I do think that it's not, it may be in the council's purview as far as the budget goes, but it's not the council's purview to hire its administration. So we may say that that would be, you know, advantageous as one of, as something that the administration could do, but as far as something that the council could do.
So you don't think if the council voted that the administration should hire somebody to do that, they wouldn't do it?
It's not in there. Someone else can answer.
Yeah. That is not our job.
Yeah.
We do not direct the town manager to hire. We have
Well, I'm not
expectations of the, you know, what the town should be doing, and, you know, and I think we can make that a strong, that we need to be able to monitor, but no, that's not our, we hire the town manager, we evaluate the town manager.
I'm not saying that the council should hire the person. It should require that a person be hired, whoever that person might be.
I think we're kind of getting into the weeds, and I think that if we want to complete our task in the amount of time, you know, that we have left, we need to be more laser focused on very tangible strategies that we want to move forward, i.e. inclusionary, you know, increasing that. Transfer tax is one option that's been discussed. We've talked about short-term, you know, short-term rentals. Again, I don't know if that would have a direct impact on year-round housing, but it's, if we want to recommend it in some form or fashion to relook at again, I could have a conversation about that. And I think that, you know, we talked about zoning, you know, that we're not going to get more affordable housing, you know, if we don't have more flexible zoning. As, Chris left. He talked about the duplexes and in certain parts of our town. But it is January 29th.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing, but we have, 2 months? And
We have 2 months, or we could accelerate our process
No, I'd
and
like
get
to
it
be done by the
before.
end of the next
I mean,
month.
we can keep meeting if we want.
No, well, I don't disagree with it. That I'd like.
I mean,
to get
as we
done
sit
sooner.
here, we're losing opportunities to take action.
Because we have
We're not moving on inclusionary zoning. We're not moving on, you know, other things that could really be beneficial. And if that's the intent of our committee, is to just slow the process down, then we're doing a fine job.
I'd like to go back to because I brought them with me, the strategies that Paula had put together, the 3 strategies, and then the kind of specifics below it. So in almost everything that we've talked about, I think, fits into one of these 3 categories. So the first one was increased revenue for affordable housing. the second one, and then it had things underneath that. Submit home rule petition to place a transfer tax on certain real estate transactions. Optimize state and federal public funding for housing. That was using the things that we have, the tools that we have
So what
more
was that?
aggressively.
Say that one again.
Optimize state and federal public funding for housing, like CDBG, gateway cities initiatives. If we opt into seasonal communities, use those. So take what we have and dedicate it to housing, and go after what we don't have right now. Recommend the amount percentage of CPA funding that's annually allocated for housing, whether that's a minimum, an average, or a higher percentage, whatever. So all of that's under the increased revenue. Then align town resources to support the creation of housing and the administration of housing programs. Use designate town assets for the creation of affordable
Align
housing.
town resource. What is that?
Align town resources to support the creation of housing and the administration of housing programs.
So that would be hiring somebody to do it. Huh? That's where that
It-
person would come in.
That's basically, use and designate town assets for the creation of affordable housing. So use town land, town buildings, whatever is
Is
surplus.
that number 6 there? Town assets? I'm just trying,
No, yours is, it's not on this one. You didn't have using town land in your list.
do we want to, is that something, I mean, we want to list a town land one on Paula's list?
It's on Paula's list.
Oh, you said it was, I thought.
It is, you didn't have it on your
I have it in
list.
front of me.
Prioritize operating funds to support the administration of housing programs. So that's the person.
So say that again?
Prioritize operating funds to support the administration of housing programs.
So, that's the end?
No, there's three. So
Okay.
the third one is
Oh, so
adopt,
there's 3 categories,
Three
but there are subsets of those.
subsets of
Yeah,
those
I mean, I've read it, but it's been a while.
yeah. So the third one is adopt or revise zoning and general ordinances to increase the supply of year-round and affordable housing. And then the subset number 1 is increase flexibility and density in appropriate zoning districts or create overlay districts to achieve the same. And the second one is revise inclusionary ordinance based on current economic data while considering making it zoning ordinance instead of a general ordinance. So those are the 3 categories and then the subcategories underneath.
So,
I think Cindy made copies, maybe.
Paula, so what you're saying, is what you're saying here that we would do more research and more detail on that, or to leave it as it is, or some similar modification?
I organized this so that we could then either agree that this is what we thought was good, or tinker with it, add something. If there's, if there's something Counselor Crowe would like to consider regarding short-term rentals that could fit under the zoning and general ordinance, I mean, I think there's something that could be listed under there as a,
So, I mean, yeah, I guess I had, my question was, this, some of these are complicated things, and somebody else can figure that out, but is that, do we want to put more words in here within these categories, or to leave it more or less the same as it is?
well,
Well, I mean, there's the issue of the staff. The staff here has to do something.
the staff has to do something?
Well, the staff can support us, and so if we want some of these described in detail, we could do it that way. I'm just asking a question. I'm not telling you what we should
I mean,
do.
I could ask my fellow counselors on the dais if these are goals and objectives that need a lot of further information and analysis, or if they stand alone as something that the council could look at and prioritize. And again, I'm not the author of this, was the organizer of it, and Councilor Crowe was not at that meeting, so that's why I said, if there's a place that there are other things to add here, that I'd be more than, and in fact, Rick, I would argue most of what you have here is in here. The only thing that I didn't include was market the importance of affordable housing to the public. But you could even, yeah.
Well, obviously I have two concerns. One is to pick the right things, and two, to have things that will actually get done. And I just, as you know, I'm just a very practical person. I'm not a detail person, so, that is a limitation that I have. But I like to get things done. And if they don't do anything, why did we do any of this?
Well, if it stays in this committee, nothing's going to get done.
Well, no, I think,
And
we're listening to you. No, don't even go
And-
there. I'm talking about the council now. The council's the ones that are going to do it. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to create housing.
I have faith in our council that they will debate these
Well, they
potential
haven't-
strategies.
They have not done a good job, and not your council in particular, but this town has not done a better job than most of the towns in creating affordable housing over the last 55 years. Hasn't done a good job.
I'm
And
not
when
sure that's really helpful in moving us forward.
The public, we're a democracy, so when the public objects to something that government wants to do, government often doesn't do it. And the public has objected to a lot of it. It doesn't do short-term good, it does long-term good. I mean, that's just a fact. It isn't.
Well, our town, and this is well before I was on the council, made a decision to create an accessory affordable housing program whereby a lot of units that did not conform to our current zoning were grandfathered in as long as the owners of those units agreed to a deed restriction and create them as affordable. So I think that was a program, and Laura would probably speak better to, how successful that was. I think one of the concerns currently is that we created these units, but a lot of them have gone offline, and we haven't been able to monitor them, successfully. There are actually quite a few affordable units in the town of Barnstable relative to our size. Believe me, I'm an advocate for more. I mean, I'm not, and that's why
Well,
it's
if you think
important
I'm
to-
criticizing the town, 71 out of 351 towns and cities have done this in Massachusetts in 55 years. 71 out of the 351, and many of those are cities and not communities like this is. So
Yeah.
we're among the majority who has done what their local democracy and their local feelings and beliefs were. And now we're in a situation where things are much worse than they were 50 years ago. And so, it's just that I'd like to see us ask for things that have a chance of getting done. And I'm not saying these don't, that's not my point. It's just a test. It's one of the tests, a mental test that I want to take. Will I do it? Now, the other night, when they talked about the land in Marston's Mills, the 5 or 6 councilors that did speak all spoke in favor of housing. I was thrilled that we had that kind of belief. Some people in Marston's Mills are gonna, tell me to move out of town now, but that's just, it's really great. So, I mean, I like this, so don't get me wrong. I think it is, and you're a counselor, and you'll carry the ball and all that kind of stuff, I know that. And I just want to make sure that we put in our minds, is that realistically something that could get done? And if we think it is, good. But that doesn't mean my opinion dominates this group, because it just shouldn't. Yeah.
I remember when I first received Paula's delineation of the 3 areas and the things that you had listed underneath those areas. I thought it was a great way to present it, and also a great way to say, to check off some things that are under each of those headings, to have at least one thing checked off under each of those headings. And I think that anybody seeing that would probably say, hey, yeah, we're getting somewhere. We're addressing all the major areas, in the 3 areas that you delineated, and we're hitting all of them. And I took a lot of notes, and I don't have them with me now, and so I can't really speak other than that. That's my bad, that I didn't bring that massive volume of paperwork that I have. That's my bad. I should have brought it, but I didn't, and so I can't really speak to the specifics under there. But I could see that one of them dealing with zoning is going to be, it might be controversial, and also it's linked to the zoning ad hoc committee, and as Rick said, let's present something that can actually get done. So I have some hesitation about the zoning part of how you did it, but I just wish I had my notes that I had taken, and I took we had 12 or 13 areas prior to that, and I fit all of them into one of the 3 categories. I think it's a framework. It's a helpful framework to use to come up with ideas to make sure that we're hitting all 3 areas. I think is a good thing. Possibly we should think about trying to make sure that all these particular areas that you have here fit in somewhere underneath those 3 categories that Paula came up with. And you really get down to brass tacks on, the strategy part of it. What are the strategies that we are going to recommend?
So,
Yeah.
if I may.
Yeah.
I believe there is going to come before the council in the next few meetings a request for an overlay district for housing to allow for greater density for affordable units, brought by a counselor, by Councilor Lutke, who's on this committee, and to me, our support of a strategy to look at our zoning would affirm that or that the item that is going to come before us, and that will refer to planning board and come back to us. So some of these things don't have to be as scary as I think people, they think that a zoning change would be, and are ways to give some flexibility to some of our local developers to create more housing units where it's a good idea to have more housing units. So
one of my weaknesses is I really need to think about things, and when things come to the council, and if a vote is expected that night or even 2 weeks later, it doesn't sit well with me. I just need to think about things more, especially something that's presented to me. Like if I don't get some idea what's going on ahead of time, then I just don't want to vote for something, when you know what I'm talking about. I just need more time.
I was just going to say that I think in defense of leaving zoning and general ordinances, leaving the zoning part in, the other committee is looking at zoning, but they're not looking at it in regards to affordable housing. And I think that makes the difference, that we should support zoning changes that support affordable housing. And so that's why I would include it in the three strategies, along with, the inclusionary as a zoning ordinance.
What type of zoning changes are we talking about? I mean, what actually might happen?
I
A
mean,
lot you can put
it
an
may
accessory
be,
unit on, for maybe you can do that now. I don't
you
know.
can do that now. You can, any single family district or anywhere that allows single-family homes now has to allow accessory units by right. So you can do that now.
Right. So what would the zoning, go ahead.
I think what you're asking, Paul was talking about the overlay district, and that's a property, a specific property. That's on the corner of Pitcher's Way and Falmouth Road, I believe. Is that correct? Right in that area. Pitcher's and Falmouth, I think it's right near the corner. So that would be maybe like a spot
For a
zone
project.
For a project. I've got a concern with the bottom issue here is making that town-wide by right, or we change zoning in all the town, and not by spot, not by particular property. And I think I don't know if that's what you're asking for, but,
No, actually, not at all. I specifically say appropriate zoning area. I totally understand that this should not be something we do across the town. I think that would be a heavy lift. That there are some communities who have been bold and done things across an entire municipality. But I think, what is being considered in our local comprehensive plan, what is, that there are areas that some denser zoning is not out of the question. And truthfully, as Rick will tell you, that's what 40B does.
I know 40.
Any parcel in this town could become a lot denser just if
Right.
somebody puts a 40B in. It's amazing that there aren't more of those, truthfully, and because you could put, I don't even want to recommend the structures in certain places if you got a 40B.
No, I know, but it's not that easy. I mean, it sounds easy, but the Housing Appeals Committee doesn't just get run over and let you do anything, because most of the things are negotiated between the town and the builder, even when it goes to the Housing Appeals Committee. So, there is a process that's, that it's reality, as opposed to the imaginary stuff. I'm just curious about what the overlay zoning would be. I'm just curious. I'm not opposed to it. I don't have an opinion about it, because I don't have a picture of what it would be like.
I don't know. I'm guessing here, but I'll make the assumption, which I don't usually do, that the overlay district is going to increase density to basically what's in the surrounding area already, because it's right next to a 40B. It's right across the street from a 40B. So I would imagine that's what they do, but I think it's in a single-family district, so.
So it's not a really large area then? We're not talking about a really large area?
I don't know. I don't know the specifics of
So
it.
in West Barnstable, for example, on 149, where we
Yeah.
built that project, so because that project's there and it's already violated zoning, then parcels across the street or either side, could be easier to get rezoned because it's already been done nearby. Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, it's different on 28 than it is on 149 in the middle of West Barnstable.
Yeah, but 149, 100 years from now is not going to look like it looks now, I don't think.
Well, it's still under Lombard and there's no water, so it's not going
Well,
to
yeah.
look, it's not going to look too
No,
different.
I'm asking it just out of curiosity, not
Yeah.
out of reality.
No, again, I don't know the specifics, so I'm guessing.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Go ahead.
We're talking about these appropriate zoning districts, which you've written down, which I appreciate it. I just want to, I think we should make that more specific if possible. I just don't want to see a general ordinance that includes the entire town and all of our villages together. The other thing I'd like to do is actually looking at the planning board, that they've pushed the housing production plan to the town council, so things are happening.
Yeah,
Okay, and this is something that we talked with Steve Rovershot about, but it actually
Yeah.
went forward anyway. What I'd like to mention here is that it says in number 4, consider regulations and other policies focused on short-term rentals. So I think this would match that, and having this is something the town should look at on short-term rentals,
yeah.
to the fact that they affect a number of properties that are taken off the market. So that's why I think we should have it in. It matches what they've already come through the council with. I think us saying that would just be a jumping on with them to do that.
So are we, what we're doing now is, and I like it too, but taking Paula's version and working with that to create a final version. The one concern I have is we have 3 people missing tonight. And, and so it's a big decision to make if we were to vote to do that. I don't think I'd want to do it this afternoon. But, I mean, I like the idea, and I think that she's done some pretty good work on this, so.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I like that it's all action-oriented. It's
Yeah.
all, declarative actions. And I think that's what we are looking for to go forward to the council. But no, I don't think we're ready to vote on
I mean, if we want to add 4, I don't know if I would do a reference to Nantucket, but,
Yeah.
and add it to the third
The third.
bullet, under the third goal, add it as a third bullet, consider regulations and other policies focused on short-term rentals to the extent that they impact year-round affordable housing, period.
Period.
That's what's on the,
Yeah. So, I mean,
the housing production
I could
plan.
live with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
So, what do we want to do for the 40 minutes we have left tonight?
Well, first thing, I believe,
This afternoon, this is not night, is it?
I think we agree that we need to talk with a fuller committee on the strategies here.
Yeah,
And, I'm not saying they don't have any merit, some of them have merit, and
Yeah.
I think that we need a wider discussion on it as a template. And there's other things you have down here on your list that are, I think we can mend these or meld these together in some respect. Okay, like some of them they're redundant to what Paul asked here. So I just think we should wait on that until we have a bigger council. And that's it.
if we do that, it would be nice to have we've messed with the version that we have in front of us, and if that was updated so it included our discussion tonight and people got it in advance of the meeting, and, it was just, there was some big emphasis on it, that this is what we're going to focus on at the next meeting, and get the next meeting as soon as we can, we always try to do that. That might be a good way to advance this and get it done in a more speedy fashion and accomplish hopefully the same thing either way, but this will be significantly faster.
I think that's fine. I do have one caveat here. I think the transfer tax, I think we can all agree that's going to be sort of complicated, because especially with the taxes we've just got our bills for, they've gone up significantly for a number of people. And then we're also talking about possibly an override in the next couple of years. So we've got to be sensitive to maybe looking at that closely, because I think that'll be controversial, because people, I think, at this time, seeing this coming, are going to be saying, well, this is quite a lot to ask of the taxpayer. That's all I'm saying about that.
So the transfer tax is now transfer. It's not really a tax; it's a fee, and it's a fee instead of it's not a tax, but it is a fee when you sell your property for over, and then the town fills in what that is. So if it's $2 million, which seems to be it's either $1 million in Western Mass, or it's 1.5 to 2 to 4 in Nantucket.
So $1 million house is
$1 million
in the old house now. And that's
Right, so
pretty nice.
$1 million house pays no fee. You only pay above
Yeah.
whatever the municipality puts in for their starting point, their
Put the $2
floor.
million number in there so that it doesn't have the reaction that people will have.
No, I don't think so, because it hasn't been decided. It's a council decision what that number is. But, you know, and it may not take a home rule petition, because it seems like it may get some support this time around. There's bills in the legislature, but
Anybody guess how much money that would raise?
they do have it figured out. I don't know if they do it for Barnstable. They do for the communities that have home rule petitions, because they have to.
Yeah, but they're all different
They're all different.
value of housing, but
Is that, do we have a percentage? Is it 1% at this point, or we don't know what the percentage would be?
So the percentage is also, can be tweaked. Some have 1, some have half.
Okay.
And then the third thing that has to be decided by the municipality is where the money goes. And some folks are having it go to their trust, their Affordable Housing Trust. And, you know, there's, some have a stabilization account, which I don't agree with, because then to get it out, you have to go back to the council to get it out, and it
Yeah, I know.
just adds a step, or town meeting if you're not Barnstable.
I'd sort of like to see these ideas here about optimizing funding, where would we be without that? Okay, because we're actually doing a lot of things to raise money here, and some of these ideas. I'd like to see where we are, so we can decide, we can have more information as we decide about a transfer tax or no. I just think, I'll just go back to my fourth, I think, I talked to a lot of people with new bills recently. I think a lot of us have. And a lot of people are outraged about how much. And I know that goes with the property values and everything else. But the property values are only realized when the house is sold. Okay, well, you're paying taxes on what a unrealized, basically, tax gain is. So I just see there's a lot of people. We've already, we did the other tax increment where we went up to 25% on the, what was that thing we did this past year? Went up to 25% on the residential tax exemption and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I think this needs to be hashed out with a better eye towards what the cumulative tax increases will be. So we're smart enough not to really put off the average citizen.
Yeah, I think if you explain that the only time it gets paid is when you sell your house.
Yeah.
And then there's also I guess there's a fourth option, and who pays it, the seller or the buyer?
It usually is designed that, the assumption being if someone can afford to spend $2 million to come into your community, they can throw some money in the pot to help those who
Right.
are struggling.
you're saying the buyer. That was the
Buyer,
Buyer,
but real estate transactions are negotiable. So where it actually falls is
Right.
anyone's guess on any transaction. So you can make it seem like it's for the buyer, but it all kind of comes out in the wash on where the burden falls.
Well, it'll increase the housing cost in wherever it's implemented. by doing that. And they've done this in California with the mansion tax, and it's really sort of put a kibosh on a lot of transactions that would have gone through because people are not selling their houses because of it. I just think we need more study on it to figure out what the implications of this as to our tax base and our taxpayers. I'm not saying I've made no decision for or against. We don't know what the percentage is going to be, don't know what the value of the home is going to be at this time. I just think it needs to be,
Well,
we got to be careful.
again,
because I
we
think
can
things are
word
gonna-
these strategies so that it's something that we should move forward with for further discussion. Consider submission of that way you don't feel like you're supporting the actual, but that you feel it's worthy of additional review. Because at the end of the day, and again, we can all have different opinions on this, but for me, a matter of equity is that, those who can afford to, buy a $2 million house, maybe needs to chip in a bit to help other people live in the community. Not everyone's going to agree with that, so, but I would come forth with that, if you're trying to, I think that was the sort of the argument behind the millionaires tax that was a, petition state referendum. Not everyone agrees, and sometimes there's consequences, and what Councilor Crowe is saying, do all your millionaires move out of the state? Do you stop real estate transactions from happening? My guess is that this is not probably sufficient enough to stop people from buying or selling a house.
So I'm not opposed to this, but I do think that what I've noticed along the way is the more money people have, the more they worry about getting more. It just works that way. And you've got the people with that kind of money are more powerful influencers than I am and you are. And so it may run into some opposition from people who.
Most of them don't vote in Barnstable.
Most of them do vote with their feet, though, and that's sort of the issue. You look at the states that are gaining population, and one of the things that, if you're looking in a general sense about population and the movements of population, a lot of the higher earning people are moving to states with lower taxes. The more we put burdens on people, the more that's going to accelerate in our state also, like any other state. And one of the reasons, I don't want to get off the track, but one of the reasons of that there's such a, about immigrants and returning them back to their countries, is that one of the reasons that there's opposition to that, not the only reason, one of the reasons there's opposition to that is that the census is coming up in a few years, and the amount of legislators, and Senate seats and House seats are determined by your population. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's one side and another. You don't hear that a lot, but that's probably the crux of this argument in a lot of other states. I just wanted to also, this was on, I saw this the other day. It was on TV, on the Business Channel. It basically shows that the top 1% pay 40% of all taxes. The top 5% pay 61% of all taxes. The top 10% pay 72% of all taxes. And the bottom 50% pay 3% of taxes. Now, I'm not saying that should change. I'm just saying at what point is it so lopsided that people move with their feet?
Well, right now, what I'm hearing is that, and I don't know if Councilor Turkelson was at Augustus's meeting. We met with the Secretary of Housing, and he said, the segment of population, the 25 to 35 or 40-year-olds, those are the people, that's your brain drain. That's leaving your state, and it's not because of taxes, it's because the housing costs. They can't, afford to buy or rent housing here. So you have, I think, concerns that taxes might be, for some people, the reason why they head somewhere else, but I think that housing costs are also. I was just in Dallas the other day, last weekend, and what a difference it makes if you have just kind of unending flat landscape in terms of, what you could do for development, both economic and housing development. I mean, it's just a different world out there.
No income tax,
What's that?
and no income
No
tax.
income tax.
And no income tax, yeah. Yeah, we've had, yeah, anyway. So I recognize we live in a different place, and our policies, have to reflect our concern for preserving what makes this place special, and our environment, and so it's a balancing act, and where we can find strategies that really help provide some relief for some of our working population, that's where we're trying to, target our efforts here. So I don't, we can't work, we're not Dallas, Fort Worth, and thankfully, we're a different community. But I think what we have here to consider is, a menu of things to try to move us in the direction where we can continue to have a diverse population that lives in the town of Barnstable.
And our kids can afford to come back.
I don't disagree with that. I grew up in a place that was much more expensive than this. And when I got out of college, I was going somewhere else. Went to Texas, went to South Carolina, went out in Colorado, and a bunch of other places. So everything, my dad used to say, everything is relative. Okay, so housing costs here are not as expensive as some other places. And it's a question of we've got to keep our tax base. Okay, and one of the issues I have with Massachusetts is they've got a fairly high income tax and sales taxes, where some of these other states don't. And we have people a lot of people in my village, they have plenty of money, they can live anywhere, so it doesn't matter. Okay, they've got the money to do that. But they're taking their taxes down to their tax payments, other than their property taxes, down to lower tax states. Imagine if those people decided not 6 months in a day, but they like the fall here, they like the spring here, and lived here 9 months. Think of the amount of money they would spend in our economy. And I think Massachusetts is pushing people to that. Okay, and I think we'd be better. I think the economic statistics will back this up. That if you get more normalized in state taxes, okay, and that some of those people would stay longer and spend more money here versus spending it all in Florida. So I think it's all part of the same thing. We've got to be careful. All I'm saying is we've got to be careful about how burdensome we go in our taxes here, because it does cause an effect. And the people who leave tend to be the people with the money that spend a lot of money here. So that's what's concerning.
Well, I think the whole conversation about people who make choices to consider their residential home in another state because there's no income tax or inheritance tax, or that's sort of beyond our pay grade here on the council or in the town. So I understand that the transfer fee would be an added cost, but I doubt it would be a reason why people would make a choice to live here or not to live here. So.
Well, some of you will live long enough to find out. I have some experience with this issue that I really don't want to talk about, but it baffles me why people with endless money get really defensive about protecting their money, because it just doesn't seem like they have so much money they don't need to protect it, and but they do.
That's a personal judgment, a personal opinion. I'm not saying that, there's other factors than that.
Well, it's just
Yeah.
that some people I know, that's how it isn't from reading stuff, it's from people I know.
Yeah.
And it just baffles me,
Yeah.
because it makes no sense to me, of course, because they have money. They couldn't spend all that money if they tried to every day. All day long, they try to.
Yeah, we're not talking only about those people. We're talking people who are in upper 15, 20% that are still accumulating wealth of retirement or a bunch of other things. It's a question of what eats away at that along the way. And I think this is way off the conversation. So let's I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
enough.
it is.
But I'm just saying that All I'm saying is that we got to be careful about
No, it's a
what
good-
we do with the transfer
it's a
tax.
good point to
Because
make.
people react to incentives or disincentives. And you're seeing that now with a lot of people moving to lower tax states. And it's taking away representation from those states that are leaving.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something we got to consider going forward as a town. The state is going to do what they're going to do.
I think the idea of a tax is a good idea. Yeah, obviously, we need to raise money for affordable housing, there's no question. The question is, will it happen or not? And I don't think it's a bad idea, but it's going to run into some opposition, we know that. And it's just how much and whether it has an effect or whether, because Paula thinks it'll be weak opposition and you think it'll be stronger. And, none of us have really enough experience to know the real answer, but, I have some funny background experiences, but I can't really talk about them here. But they don't involve me, it just involves people I know. And I don't want to get them involved in this.
Do we want to move on to approving the minutes?
Yes, we're all set? We certainly have spent the time on this, yeah. So we have 2 minutes that have been sent to us, thankfully, that we need to approve. And they're here somewhere with the dates. Where are they? And all the mess of my paper, but
December 30th and January 16th.
thank you very much. So is there a motion to approve those 2 minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, say
Aye.
aye. Everybody's in favor.
We have somebody on Zoom. Do we have to take a roll call?
Hilda is just watching because there's no hybrid link. She's not
Okay.
technically participating today because we did not set up a hybrid link for her. So she's just viewing the meeting.
Okay, I have to abstain from the 16th because I wasn't here.
Because you missed the meeting.
I missed the meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we need to schedule another meeting. Do you have any thoughts as to when, as soon as the sooner the better, obviously?
The only 2 dates I'm aware of right now that we need to avoid are February 7th and February 10th. Because I've got 2 committee meetings,
So
so
the
I
people
can't
like
be in
3
2.
o'clock or 4 o'clock better, let's get that over with. Hearing nothing, 4 o'clock is the
It
winner.
depends on the day.
What?
It depends on the day.
Okay, so if you have problems because you go to Boston some days and all that, what would your preference be?
Again, it depends on the day. If
You
it's,
don't, but you have a calendar in
I
front
have
of
a
you.
calendar in
So
front of
tell-
me. So
The 7th and 10th are not available, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Just tell us what you would like to have
10th is
happen.
town council
if you
rules,
can.
And the 7th is the new committee.
On committees.
Right. On the standing committees, yes.
I mean, you're obviously an important part of this, you know a lot of this stuff, and it'd be nice to have you here, and since we have a quiet group over here, you could tell us what date you would like it to be.
yeah, I'm looking.
No, hurry, we got plenty
I
of
could
time.
do the 12th at 4 o'clock.
February 12th, which is a Wednesday,
Let me just make sure.
At
I'm
4
lost.
o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a 7 PM meeting, but that's all right.
That's good with me.
What, it's good? That work? The 12th of February at 4, what?
4 p.m.
Yeah.
4 PM, I thought you said 14, yeah.
Yep.
Well, Paula, thanks for writing that up. That was it ended up being very helpful, and I'm sure a lot of thought went into that one way or the other. It was good.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Aye. Aye.